What's up, guys? Charles here. We'll begin with the most affordable options and progress to the most expensive and well-equipped boards you ought to consider. Our number one pick for the best entry-level ASRock B650M Pro RS motherboard is quite solid. The good news is that you can purchase the B650M Pro RS, and the stock appears to be plentiful. There is also a Wi-Fi version available in terms of VRM performance. Both feature 850 amp power stages for the V-Core, which provides ample power for the Ryzen 9 7950X. It will effortlessly accommodate any Ryzen processor you choose to use. For an extra $10, you gain an additional M2 slot and an extra USB 3.2 port. Aside from that, they are quite similar in terms of features. Another board to consider in this range would be the MSI Pro B650MA Wi-Fi for $156. It is a significantly better option than the ASUS Prime B650MA Wi-Fi, which you should avoid at all costs, along with the terrible GIGABYTE B650M gaming Wi-Fi that sells for around the same price. Other budget boards, such as the ASRock B650MH/M2+, MSI Pro B650MP, GIGABYTE B650MD 3HP, and GIGABYTE B650MK, are all garbage with terrible performing VRMs. They might work fine with lower-end AM5 processors, but for similar money, the boards we've recommended can handle all AM5 processors with ease and are overall superior products. Number 2. If you're after an affordable B650 motherboard but prefer an ATX model over micro ATX, there are quite a few options around $150. The newest additions include the GIGABYTE B650 Eagle X and the MSI Pro B650S Wi-Fi. The GIGABYTE Eagle AX delivers better VRM performance with a PCIe 5.0 enabled M2 slot. The MSI Pro S Wi-Fi, on the other hand, offers around twice as many USB 3.2 ports and 2.5 gigabit LAN compared to gigabit. So our preference here would be the MSI model for its stronger feature set. Both are decent boards with passable VRMs. They will work well with Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7 processors, but for Ryzen 9 models, we'd recommend seeking alternative options. However, if you can find them in your region, we'd skip both of the above in favor of the ASRock B650 PG Lightning or the distinctive-looking ASRock B650 Live Mixer. So get whichever one you like best. Both boards are vastly superior to the MSI and GIGABYTE models for an extra $5 to $10. You get an almost overkill 1460A V-Core, which means the VRM is top-notch and will handle anything you throw at it. Number 3. For a budget of around $200, there are options worth considering beyond the entry-level models. The new MSI B650M Gaming Plus Wi-Fi would be one of the better value options here. In terms of features, the Gaming Plus Wi-Fi and Mortar Wi-Fi are essentially the same board with a different VRM. The Gaming Plus gets a cheap 10-phase V-Core using discrete MOSFETs, whereas the Mortar is armed with a high-quality V-Core using a dozen 80-amp power stages. Frankly, we think it's worth buying for the extra $20, knowing that the board will handle any CPU you install on it with ease. Then there's the GIGABYTE B650M AORUS Elite AX, the ASUS TUF Gaming B650M Plus Wi-Fi. In terms of VRM performance, they're all much the same, using a dozen 60 to 80 amp power stages. In terms of board features, they're all very similar too. They offer two M2 slots, but the GIGABYTE and ASUS boards support PCIe 5.0 for the primary slot, whereas the MSI board is limited to PCIe 4.0. This is probably a non-issue for most, but worth mentioning. They all offer 2.5 gigabit LAN and Wi-Fi, though the ASUS board only gets Wi-Fi 6, whereas the MSI and GIGABYTE boards feature 6E. All boards include M2 heat spreaders for both ports and large heat sinks covering the entire VRM. Sadly, none of them feature 2-digit debug code LEDs, instead using basic LED light debug, which is better than nothing, but not great. Number 4. For the best mid-range ATX motherboard priced around $200 or even a bit less, there are a gazillion options available. The good news is that there are no bad choices. Some might be poorly priced given what they offer, but overall, you can't go wrong in terms of performance. The new ASRock B650 Steel Legend Wi-Fi is hands down the best. Availability is sketchy right now, unfortunately, but if you can get it at that price, that's our #1 pick. The reason is it offers the best features with an exceptionally strong V-Core VRM using 1480A power stages. You also get PCI 5.0 support on the primary PCI X16 slot along with the primary M2 slot, even though this isn't a B650E motherboard. There are also 11 USB 3.2 ports, 8 USB 2.0 ports, Wi-Fi 6E, and 2.5 gigabit LAN. It really is the best of the best at this price point. The ASRock outperforms the MSI B650 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi and embarrasses the ASUS TUF Gaming B650E Wi-Fi, both of which sell for the same price. It's also better equipped than the GIGABYTE B650 Gaming X870E, though depending on the price in your region. Stepping up to $190 to $200, you'll find the ASRock B650E PG Riptide Wi-Fi, ASRock B650 Pro RS, and MSI MAG B650 Tomahawk Wi-Fi. The B650 EPG Riptide Wi-Fi is a great option as it's one of the cheapest B650E motherboards. That said, somehow the B650 Steel Legend Wi-Fi is still better equipped and slightly cheaper. The MSI MAG B650 Tomahawk Wi-Fi also puts up a good fight, but lacks PCI 5.0 support entirely, so again, the Steel Legend is better equipped and slightly cheaper. Number 5. If you don't have a firm budget and want the best B650 motherboard without going overboard, ASRock also wins this category. I'm not sure how they're doing it, but the B650E Taichi Lite can be had for just $240, which is just bonkers and at that price neutralizes every other board. For $240, you're getting a B650E motherboard with 24105A power stages for the V-Core. At that point, you could comfortably run 2 Ryzen 97950X processors. You also get PCI 5.0 support for the primary PCI X16 slot and an M2 slot, with an additional 2 PCI 4.0 M2 slots. There are an incredible 14 USB 3.2 ports with a USB 4 port. Then there's the typical Wi-Fi 6E and 2.5 gigabit LAN. Even though this is a no-frills version of the standard B650E Taichi, with less RGB lighting and more standard-looking heatsinks, ASRock has still included a 2-digit debug code LED at the bottom of the board. All the essentials are still included. So the Taichi Lite is our best high-end B650 board pick. If this board happens to be unavailable in your region or pricing is not good, alternatives include the GIGABYTE B650E AORUS Elite X870E ICE, which is a B650E board. However, unless you specifically want a white motherboard, the ASRock B650E Taichi Lite is a better value product. The ASUS ROG Strix B650EF Gaming Wi-Fi is in a similar position. There's also the ASUS ProArt B650 Creator, which does support X8/X8 operation for its primary and secondary PCI X16 slots, whereas all other boards are limited to X16/X4 or worse. So if that PCI configuration is useful to you, this board has value. Otherwise, it's pretty average in terms of pricing and features. That's it for today's video. Do consider subscribing for all the latest content on gaming, and as always, I'll see you at the next one. Peace out.